and welcome to Book Club. So, my name is Julie Fei-Fan Balzer, and you can find me as Balzer Designs absolutely everywhere on Instagram, on Facebook. I have a very non-active TikTok account. So, I'm so glad you're here, whether you're here live. I'd love it if you check in the chat or you're watching on the replay. But we are in the midst of an epic 12-week journey into The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. We are on week 5. And basically the deal is every week I put together sort of a little vlog of my day-to-day experiences with the book. And then you guys leave the most awesome and interesting comments and thoughts about sort of your experience with it or reactions to, what I'm sharing and my experience. And it's really just, we have a great conversation about what's going on. So in case you don't know me, I am an artist. I live outside of Boston. I like a lot of color. And I teach classes that are really based on understanding the fundamentals of art, getting sort of under the hood and figuring out exactly what's going on. I do have a monthly membership program on my classroom site. So you can check all of that out if you visit juliebalzer.com. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started with the vlog.
5, recovering a sense of possibility. So it says this week you're being asked to examine your payoffs and remaining stuck. You will explore how you curtail your own possibilities by placing limits on the good you can receive. You will examine the cost of settling for appearing good instead of being authentic. You may find yourself thinking about radical changes, no longer ruling out your growth by making others the cause of your constriction. I don't think this chapter is going to be for me, but let's see what I can take out of it. So I have to share my new favorite thing that I've gotten. These are transparent sticky notes. So let me show you how they work. These are so perfect for library books or for anything else where you just don't want to mark up your book too much. So look, right? It's a completely transparent sticky note. So if you want to note something. Now, by the way, you can use pencils, color pencils, ballpoint pens, oil-based markers, but you can't use regular pens or water-based pens. So this kind of pen is not going to write on that surface. I'm just going to grab my ballpoint pen, and then I can underline stuff. I can write notes, etc. And then when I want to return the book, or if I'm done with it, I simply take it out, and I haven't actually marked up my book if you care at all about it. I just think it's such a neat idea. And so this little pack that I bought actually comes with, let's see, 4 different pads. I know I'm going to be using a ton of these. So I've been thinking about how to do the morning pages through art and experimenting. And so I just thought I would explain my brain to you. So it's like morning pages are meant as a dump. Everybody who says that they've gotten a lot out of morning pages has basically said that what it's done for them has been to clear their mind and or to get past their original ideas to something else and or just kind of get on down the road. And so I think that's really what a sketchbook practice is about in so many ways. So I'm really thinking about, I just have been trying to figure out what the right proportion of time is in my sketchbook in terms of the dumping of the feelings, the getting past the original thought, is it 15 minutes? Is it 3 pages? Is it something else? And again, also what's sustainable, because the problem is if I finish The Artist's Way and then I crash, I just am burned out, it's kind of what's the point, right? You're trying to create some sort of sustainable routine. So I've been thinking about that big question, what is it that I want out of the book? And I'm thinking maybe it's just really clarifying my art practice. So I think I'm going to start to look for that every week, just what is my art practice? Not that I need to change it, but I need to clarify it for myself. is that I want to become really internally clear and focused. I think that's a great line. It's right from page 96, internally clear and focused. I think that's a fantastic goal. So I just need to really, really focus on, I think, what I'm trying to do as an artist. What am I trying to do with my artwork? So I've been thinking a lot about the morning pages because I've been doing this kind of sketchy thing that I've been working out. I don't quite have a hold of what it is, but I think it's going to take me a little time to work it out. But what I was going to say is Ruth sent me a link to a blog post that somebody had written about morning pages. I've had a couple other people talk to me about like why they love morning pages. But here's the thing that I realized. All of these people love morning pages. They look forward to them. They're an important part of their day. They value them. I hate them. I loathe them. Every time I have to do them, it's a fight. And that is a good indication that it's not a good fit for me. And it's not that I haven't tried. I would say that I've tried for several weeks now, and it doesn't work for me in my lifestyle. And so for me, that's an indication that I am on the right path and trying to find a different way to get towards that, right? Because if the same thing worked for everyone, I mean, that would be crazy and also completely unrealistic, right? We're all different and unique. So, I don't know that I have a point, but that was my thought right in this moment. So I'm designating tomorrow as my artist date. I'm going to the Museum of Fine Arts to see a lecture on the Cy Twombly exhibit that's there. And I'm taking my mom with me. We won't talk during the lecture, so I have my own ideas. It's my own artist date. I mean, the other day I was at the grocery store by myself and I was like, oh, maybe this is an artist date. I'm by myself. But I don't think that that's the intention, right? It's like an intentional something that you're doing to kind of nurture yourself. And so I'm going to the museum to nurture myself, and Steve is going to watch our son, and I get to spend time with my mom, and like it feels like a very nurturing thing. So artist date. So as a side note, while I'm thinking about it, I have gotten some messages and emails and stuff from people who basically say like they like being alone on the artist date because they find that they interact with strangers and they just have a different experience. And I totally respect that. And I can see that that is awesome. And like, I love talking to strangers. I actually talk to strangers quite a bit, more than I probably ought to. But I'm lonely. I'll be frank. I don't want to go places by myself. I'm tired of going places by myself. I'm tired of being by myself. I want to be with other people. So my artist date this week was great. I felt totally jazzed after the visit to the museum, the lecture, the exhibit, spending time with my mom. We had such a good time. It was perfect. It was perfect. It was everything that I wanted it to be. And so again, I'm making this book work for me, and I'm saying that an artist date is when I do something that's just for me, that's stimulating to me, that's exciting to me. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. Me, 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 me. Okay, so I've had a little bit of an epiphany that I wanted to share, which is from this line here. So we startle ourselves by saying yes instead of no to opportunities. And then later on the same page, she says, by holding lightly to an attitude of gentle exploration, we can begin to lean into creative expansion. By replacing no way with maybe, we open the door to mystery and to magic. So right after I got divorced, or sort of when I was going through the divorce, I started this thing called my year of yes. And it was a year in which I was just going to say yes to all kinds of things. That's literally what this is. So one of the reasons I don't need this book is I did this, baby, and it does work. It does work 100%. I mean, I've had people who knew me for many, many years who said things to me like, wow, Julie, you're so much more relaxed now. You're so much more, I don't know, easygoing or whatever. I mean, I will say this. I think that whatever form you do it, for me, that worked my year of yes. Anytime somebody invited me to something that I was like, I don't know. This is how I ended up going clubbing a lot in my 30s, dating men that I thought were wildly inappropriate. Meeting Steve, is because I started to say yes to things that I otherwise would have said no to. And I love my life. So I got to get with Julia Cameron on this one. So one of the things that I got out of my artist date, the Cy Twombly lecture, is actually related to this line here. So it says an artist must have downtime. Time to do nothing, defending our right to such time takes courage, conviction, and resiliency, right? And so one of the things about Cy Twombly is that the lecturer was saying he used to spend days where he would just be like reading poetry and thinking about things, and then he would incorporate some of the lines from that poetry and some of those ideas into his work later. And I thought, I always feel guilty if I read a book. I always feel, bad if I decide to like, do something that's not kind of like quote unquote work. But I think you have to realize as an artist is that part of the work of being an artist is accepting stimulus. In fact, is like collecting or going after things to stimulate you. So I love this idea. Okay, so here's my weekly disagree with Julia Cameron moment here. She's giving some examples of ways that you basically shouldn't be nice to other people, but be nice to yourself. So he says, a man who works in a busy office may crave and need the retreat of solitude. Nothing would serve him better than a vacation alone, but he thinks that's selfish, so he doesn't do it. It wouldn't be nice to his wife. Yeah, it wouldn't be nice to his wife. If I were his wife and he announced that he was going on a vacation by himself, we would have a problem, period. And so here's another example. A woman with 2 small children wants to take a pottery class. It conflicts with some of her son's Little League practices, and she wouldn't be able to attend as faithful audience. She cancels pottery and plays the good mother, seething on the sidelines with resentments. So there's several things there. Seething with resentment is a problem, right? If you're seething with resentment, there's something else going on there, and that needs to be addressed. I think this is a false dichotomy, right? You're going to miss some of your son's Little League practices. I mean, how is he going to get there otherwise? Is it that you're not going to be the audience, which is what this says, as a faithful audience, or is that he physically has no way to get there and get home? I mean, those are 2 separate issues. Trucking your children around is a huge pain in the butt. I don't know. I guess there's a possibility that I'm too caught up in niceness, but there's also a possibility that, this last one gets me. A young father with a serious interest in photography yearns for a place in the home to pursue his interest. The installation of a modest family darkroom would require dipping into savings and deferring the purchase of a new couch. The darkroom doesn't get set up, but the new couch does. I think that sometimes you do have to sacrifice things for other people. It's so hard. I mean, I don't think there's a one size fits all, but there's some of these examples make me mad. Like I see the other side of them completely. See, because I think there's the making nice. So okay, when Steve and I were dating, one of the things I said to him, is I said, listen, the day that I would rather be in my art studio than hanging out with you is the day we break up. And I think that that's a fair statement of fact, in the sense that you shouldn't have people in your life that they're not better than being by yourself. So it's time for the weekly check-in. So how many days this week did you do your morning pages? I did my sketchbook pages maybe 5 days this week. Are you starting to like them at all? Now I am. How was the experience for you? Have you discovered the 1.5-page truth point yet? Many of us find that pay dirt in our writing occurs after a 1.5 pages of vamping. I do know that for me, in making art, most of the good stuff comes after, you know what I mean, like 2 or 3 ideas come out, and then sort of the idea after that is better. So that's good. Did you do your artist date this week? I did. Have you had the experience of hearing answers during this leisure time? What did you do for your date? How did it feel? Have you taken an artist date yet that really felt adventurous? So honestly, the most adventurous artist date that I've had so far was eating breakfast by myself, which sounds like the stupidest artist date possible, but it really was for me. And I think, again, that's part of why artistic development, and all development actually, really needs to be so personal, because what's hard for me is not hard for you, and what's hard for you is not hard for me. And that's why I think it's so important that you don't do performative self-help. It's why the morning pages are meant to be private. It's why the answers to a lot of these questions in this book, like your wishes and all that kind of stuff, is so private, because that's for you. And what the second it becomes performative, it's problematic. It's a little bit like the 100-day project has become so performative that I really struggle with it. I'm really struggling with it actually right now. Did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? Try inaugurating a conversation on synchronicity. Synchronicity. Yes, synchronicity with your friends. I'm just trying to think if I experienced anything that I would describe as synchronicity. I can't think of anything. Were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. I would just say the fact that I came to realize what I want out of this book. Like, that's great. I'm seeking clarity, right? I want to be really, let's get the line exactly right. I want to become internally clear and focused. Internally clear and focused.
Okay. So that's a little bit about my experience of week 5, which is, again, recovering a sense of possibility. I feel like up until this point, like weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 felt like very much they were trying to break you down. Like, say, like, hey, you have a problem. Hey, recognize that you have a problem. Hey, you have a problem. And week 5 feels like maybe it's the beginning of trying to like build back up. Although I would love to discuss this idea of the virtue trap, because I have a lot of thoughts about doing nice things for people because for a couple of reasons. Like I think like resentment is a terrible thing. Let's put it that way, right? And if you would, again, like rather be doing something else instead of what you're doing, like that's a terrible situation to be in. And yes, you need to figure out a way around that, right? But I also think that if you have taken on responsibilities like a family, like some sort of financial burden, like a mortgage, like whatever, you do have the responsibility to sort of deal with those or figure out, how best to deal with it and not sort of like just be like me all the time about everything. But I don't know if I am, as a woman coming from a culture of niceness, trying to accommodate other people. I always feel like if you can, and it's not totally like destructive to yourself, what's the harm, right, in doing that? But I also have a very like understanding partner who takes, I don't know. It's very complicated. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts about it. I will say that, so I've had this little viewfinder sketchbook that I've been using for my morning pages, and I've really been enjoying it. It feels like it's a good size. It can fit in my purse. It means I don't have to do it first thing in the morning, but I just make sure every day to get in here. And so far, I'm really happy with how that is turning out. So I'm going to keep pursuing that and sort of see where we get to. Feels like a quiet crowd today. I hear a little bit of stationery enabling, which is always good. I put a link to the transparent sticky notes in case anybody's interested in those. I did use those throughout the book. You can see it looks like I've written in the book, but I haven't. I think I saw somebody do like a TikTok or something where they were showing transparent sticky notes. And immediately I was like, I want these because they allow you to write in your book without writing in your book. Now I own this book and I could write in this book, but I just have a mental block about it. So I can't write in the book. So if nobody has anything to add to the discussion, then I'm happy to just sort of talk a little bit about what is coming up, and then we can sign off. So one of the things that I started to do that I thought was actually really helpful, I don't know if anybody else did this, but this is the virtue trap quiz right here. And I actually really liked it for a couple reasons. So the first question in it is, the biggest lack in my life is, and I have to tell you, it took me a long time to think of something to put there. The biggest lack in my life is, and I went through it all. And it's like, would I like more time? Absolutely. But truth be told, like, it's probably me squandering time and I can make it work. I'd like more money. But truth be told, it's not like I'm on the, I have a beautiful house and I'm not starving. I'm very lucky. You know what I mean? Well, what would, would I like more love? No, I've got tons of love. So it was like actually a wonderful like way of counting my blessings. I also found it interesting because numbers 2 and 3 are the greatest joy in my life is, and my largest time commitment is. And the answer for both of those were my son. My greatest joy in my life is my son. My biggest time commitment is my son. And so, you know, in terms of like the virtue trap, like I don't feel his joy makes whatever drudgery, you know, completely worth it. So I don't know if anybody else had a different experience with the virtue trap quiz, but I'd love to hear about it. So Donna says that she agrees about responsibility. I personally felt that some of these are maturity issues, especially on page 91. So I'm just flipping back to page 91. So I don't know if your book is the same as mine. Maybe the pages are different because that's the first page in there. So who knows? But yeah, I felt like for me, like you want to have a dark room or your family needs a couch. Like, no, you don't get a dark room. That's like, I don't understand how that's anyway, who knows? So Sophia says, I agree with your comment that resentment is not a good place to be in. That said, it can be easy to find yourself overwhelmed with real life stuff and putting yourself at the bottom of the list. 100%. I totally agree with that. And I have been guilty of that a million times. And I think that when you feel resentful, the question is, what is the solution, right? And sometimes the solution is somebody else has to be unhappy. Maybe your kid doesn't go to baseball practice. Maybe somebody else has to step up. Maybe you can, you know, find a way around it. But being just seething with resentment is the worst. Absolutely. Kathleen says, just tell us more about your life and work. I'm glad you're so interested. Donna says, being stingy with ourselves is true, but trying not to be too selfish. We are social creatures and interact with others. Yeah. And Kathleen says, the past 30 years has changed the experience of women. Fewer women get into the virtue trap. And when we're not in a trap, we can give love and attention to others. Yeah. And I think like more men too are in a understanding that like they need to step up. You know, I had a conversation with my mother, who is definitely, you know, from a different generation. And she mentioned how like men don't talk about their feelings. And I said, I think that's actually an old conversation because I know that like Steve's friends, like they talk about their feelings with each other and like what's going on and all that stuff. It may not be in the same way that women do, but they definitely do. And like, you know, I think about my brother and his friends, and they definitely get into it with each other and stuff. So I'm actually really hopeful that sort of some of those old things are changing over. Ooh, Donna says it's the last line. So on page 91, it says, we are stingy with ourselves, and if we receive a gift beyond our imagining, we often send it back. And you know, this reminded me of what's that poem that says like our biggest fear is not that we are inadequate. I think we all know this one. Let's see if I can find it really quickly. Here we go. So it's Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened, pop up, and about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so that book is from A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to suspect, although I don't know because I don't see it here, that it was written at a similar time to this book, you know, because it very much feels that they're thinking sort of in the same space. Oh, and Donna says the part about killing those who interfere with your work was off the wall. Yeah, especially when she said, and then it turns to wanting to kill yourself. And I was like, okay, that's took a very dark, very deep twist. You know, who knows? Maybe I let that all go. I accept me. Very important coming our family where I was the odd one. Absolutely. Kathleen says, I remember when I first heard that quote, Marianne Williamson, it felt very scary. Now it's hell yeah. And I think that's great too. Like, I do think, again, you reach a point, there's a point in your life where maybe you need to hear it. And I will also say that, again, I've said this before, in my 20s, I think I would have been had a very different experience of this. If I hadn't gotten divorced, I probably would have had a totally different experience. I mean, I went divorced, I got therapy, I did like all those things. So I worked on myself, and I think that, this is, after all, a self-help book. Now I have a blog post that's in draft mode for tomorrow, where I was really thinking about like how to get the most out of a self-help book. Like, what can you do when you have a book like this? And so I wrote down a couple things, which is, and one of them is to take notes. So I haven't been doing the morning pages in the traditional way, but my notebook that I've been using for morning pages, instead of doing the morning pages, what I've transferred over to is, this is where I write down the answers to all of these questions and take any notes that I want sort of on what I'm reading. And I do use a Cornell notebook. I don't know. This is more stationary porn, I guess. I don't know how many of you use Cornell notes. This is what it looks like. You can see, right? It's lined paper, and then it has like an area on the side that's kind of blank. Whoop. And then an area at the bottom. And the theory is that you write with Cornell notes in this section, right? And then later you go back, and in this section, you pull out like what's important or some ideas. And then down here, you basically write like the biggest idea on this page. And so I think that's a really useful way of taking notes, because I love to read books, and I take a lot of notes on, there are some marketing books and other things that I've really enjoyed, and I've taken notes all through them. And what happens is it all gets jumbled, right? When you first read it, you're excited, you're ready to go, you've got a plan of action, and then it kind of goes. And then you have to like reread the book or figure out where you left off. But if you have notes, then you don't have to do it. And if you have Cornell notes, then you really don't have to do it, because you can just like scan here to look what you're looking for. And it means that you could have like hundreds of pages and really quickly sort of figure things out. So you can Google Cornell notes, and you can find tons and tons of like videos and information about it. There are also bajillion Cornell notebooks like on Amazon. This is a moleskin one, I think. This is like a schmancier one. Oh, I forgot. It comes with little stickers, which I will never use, but just hoard, because that's the way that I am. But it works really well for me. So Kathleen says, I love stationery porn. I love the back to school sales. Me too. The problem is I just buy a lot of stationery. I think actually like one of the reasons I'm attracted to morning pages and keep trying to make them work is because I want to use all my notebooks. Do you know what I mean? Sophia says she may or may not have just tracked down the transparent Post-its on UK Amazon and nabbed them. I won't tell anybody. You can go into witness protection about it. I agree with the stationery porn. I've been addicted since childhood, 100%. Anytime there's like a little Japanese stationery store, I am definitely there for all the tiny, cute sticky notes and other stuff. But I do think that these are actually, these ones I felt less guilty about buying, because it wasn't like they were just cute. Like, these are genuinely different and felt really useful, which was great. So, okay, so recovering a sense of possibility. I hope you can tell I'm feeling more positive about this book. Again, because of that goal I have about becoming clear about things, it makes it easier for me to sort through everything that I'm seeing and put a kind of filter on it and just say, like, if this doesn't relate to my goal, I'm going to chuck it. If this doesn't relate to my goal, I'm going to check it. And so this is one of the things actually I wrote about in my blog post is I wrote about how I think that if you don't have a goal, like, you need to have a goal going into your self-help book. What is it you want? And when I came into this book, I was like, let's just see what happens, which is not a goal. It's not really a good goal. So now I have a goal about getting clear about my artistic practice. And so I can use all of this to get clear about that. And I think some people might come into this book trying to get clear about their life. And that's a totally separate thing. And so you need it in a different way. For me, narrowing the focus down to my artistic practice is really, really helpful, you know? And Carol says she's into the Cornell notepad. I like it. It's good. So what I hear you guys saying is instead of book club, we need to have station club where we just look at all the things that we own that are so cute and useful and talk about them. I'm down for that, by the way. Okay, so I want to thank you for being here live, and I want to thank you for watching the replay and all that stuff, and all your very thoughtful comments too. Sophia says, "I love how you're finding your own way to find a useful way of responding to all of it." I think that can be instructive. Just because it's not directly relevant doesn't mean it cannot perhaps be useful. Yeah, and this is often what I tell people about classes. Don't find instructors who make the kind of art you want to make. That has been the road of disappointment for me 1,000 times. I go to class wanting to make art like this person, but they are somehow incapable of transmitting to me how they do it. And so then I'm inevitably disappointed, right? But if I find teachers who talk about art in ways that make sense to me, then it's like I can find my own way towards it. And so for me, that's been a really helpful tool in taking classes. So I love to take classes from like landscape painters, very realistic artists, people who work in forms completely outside of what I do, because I find that the way that, and it has to obviously be the right teacher, but I find the way that some of these teachers talk about art or talk about their process or talk about what they're doing so enormously stimulating and exciting that it really helps me and buoys my artistic practice, as opposed to people who I'm like, oh, I love that, I want to make that, and then you kind of never get there. You know what I mean? Anyway, again, I want to say thank you, and I'll see you next week. I think the title of week 6 is recovering a sense of abundance. And just FYI, because I looked ahead, this is going to be an interesting thing to talk about. Money madness. I think that one of the things that I'm getting is through this book is to understand Julia Cameron, because she talks about money a lot. So obviously it was a big issue for her. So I guess next week it's going to be a big issue for us. Okay. Thanks so much. Bye.